necessarily tribal or regional.
Because I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying with us. You're watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Time to take a look at the dailies on Daybreak. We'll begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. The lead story here, it says, I will give you living wage. Tinubu promises workers. It has the writers that says, respect their rights. Buhari tells president-elect. Labour demands better deals. Khan harps on decent working conditions. Resist anti-democratic forces. PDP tells workers. All the details on page 4 and 14. Above the lead story, Egypt opens borders for Nigerians fleeing Sudan. And that's on page 7. Cancer scare. Nigeria bans importation of Indomie noodles. On page 14. Dangote commits over 9.2 trillion naira to Pan-African investments on page 19. Now the pictorial shows you events in Abuja, Lagos and Jigawa Workers' Day celebration, and these are the main features on the front cover of Daily Trust newspaper this morning.
Now let's take a look at the Nation newspaper, which has a lead story that says pay rise coming for health workers, lecturers, others. And the rider says funding captured in this year's budget, says federal government. Then the second rider, president-elect promises living wage. And beneath that, we have Ngige counters Obaseki over no cash to pay salary claim. Also, we have 1,360 more Nigerians leave Khartoum. 27 buses head for Port Sudan. And just above the masthead, we have Nigeria's forex reserves lost $1.8.2 billion. Inflows decline. Government officials suspended over alleged salary padding. We also have strike notice by resident doctors absurd, says minister. Then there's also a rider there. Oh, another story. JAMB to release UTME results today. These are the major stories on the Nation newspaper for today.
All right, now let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper this morning, where you have the lead story talk about the dwindling revenues. It says, amid dwindling revenues, Tinubu raises workers' hope for living wage. You also have, it says that your fight will be my fight. So that's the president-elect assuring Nigerian workers. It says, your fight will be my fight. We don't want broken promises. Well, I would believe that will be the workers now responding. FG states may not pay salaries from June, Obaseki warns. You can't speak for government, Labour tells Edo governor. So that's a response to the claim made by the Edo State governor. You also have other stories above the lead at the masthead at Oshibajo's book launch. Go on, Lord's current government. You also have ethylene oxide. NAFDAC takes noodle samples for investigation. So all the noodles lovers. Well, we'll see how what the investigation will reveal eventually. Manufacturers spent 76.7 billion naira on alternative power in 6 months. You have APC crisis. Adamu Omishore lack powers to expel me, says Lukman. 10th Senate, Akpabio meets PMB over ambition. Police invite Adamawa Rec hoodoo over dramatic declaration. God won't allow anybody to tamper with Kano Emirates. That's according to Governor Abdullahi Ganduje. Well, these are the main stories on the front page of the Leadership story.
Now let's take a look at the Sun newspaper, which is an update on the Sudanese crisis and the fate of Nigerian students. It has a late story that says Egypt opens border for fleeing Nigerian students. The writer says Buhari engages President Sisi. And above that, we have I'll fight until I regain my mandate. This is coming from Obi. And beneath the lead story, we have 10th NAS. Senate leadership frustrates plans to alter own rules. And then the rider, as lawmakers keep vigil. We also have UTME. JAM announces date of release of results, reschedules UTME for some candidates. Workers hail Uzodinma back his second term bid. We also have APC leadership crisis, suspend me, Lukman, Des, NWC. And we have a pictorial of the May Day celebration with the president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Joe Ajero, addressing the workers. And beneath that, we have May Day, Tinubu promises workers goodies. Declares, I will give you more than minimum wage. And then beneath that, we have Buhari advises incoming government to respect workers' rights. We also have Ugwanyi hands over Medical Diagnostic Center to NSIA. And finally, on the Sun, we have police trail kidnappers of 2 Catholic priests in Delta. These are the major stories on Daily Sun for today.
All right, now let's take a look at this day newspaper. The lead story here, it says, Ganduje to Kwankwaso, God will not allow anybody destroy our new Kano Emirate. So that would be in response to the viral video showing the Rabbi Musa Kwankwaso saying that the issue of the former emir of Kano will be revisited. That's talking about Lamido Sanusi. And also we have other stories. Above the masthead, it says, Sanusi, it's Nigeria's loss. Oshibajo was not elected president. So that's according to former emir Lamido Sanusi there. Obi, contrary to reports, I was never arrested in London, says he was only stopped for routine immigration checks. LP crisis deepens as Apapa-led group holds neck tomorrow. You also have Buhari charges successor to respect workers' rights. These are the main stories on the front page of this day newspaper.
Now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. It has a lead story that says Tinubu promises tough decisions. NLC demands new retirement age. We also have Labour recommends 65 years retirement age, 40-year length of service. And the second rider, President-elect seeks understanding, says hard decisions coming soon. And beneath that is a rather sad pictorial showing vehicles stranded as flood takes over the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway Long Bridge. Beneath that, Sudan, Egypt opens border for stranded Nigerians. Lawless Navarretes brutalized Ogun man over parking space. We also have Senate presidency. Akpabio meets Buhari, defends ambition. And above the masthead, Association of Resident Doctors fumes as Ngige condemns doctors' entitlement mentality. Then we have police, DSS, INEC joint panel invites suspended Adamawa Rec. Still on the Punch, subsidies, salary payment unlikely after June, says Obaseki. These are the major stories on the Punch newspaper for today.
All right. Now let's get perspectives to some of the stories that we have this morning on our papers. We have our guest reviewer in the studio, Dr. Theophilus Abba, the Director of Programs, Daily Trust Foundation, with us to give perspectives to some of the stories. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here again.
Yes. Well, I would say congratulations and happy Workers' Day in belated, I would say rather, in arrears now.
Yes.
To you.
But it's quite, it's good that we have a day to mark, to recognize what workers do, because it's the workers that help the economy. Without these workers, the wealth that the country produces can't be produced.
Yes, and we're seeing a lot of promises arising from the Workers' Day. The president-elect is assuring workers of living wage and not minimum wage. So the whole conversation about living wage versus minimum wage, how practical is it for Nigeria that we're seeing all the economic indices that we are seeing right now, all the inflation and all the talk about borrowing to fund our budget?
Well, Now, when you talk about minimum wage, you know, we just talk about, oh, this is the least anyone could earn, you know. But when you talk about living wage takes into consideration all the basic expenses that an individual or household would incur. For instance, if you talk about living wage, we are talking about wages that will take care of your transportation, your feeding, fueling, basic school fees, the kind of amount of money that can get you enough meals, nutrition, you know, for a month. Now, if you look at it, that is what Nigerians need, not a minimum wage. Like, we have 30,000 naira as minimum wage in this country today. And then you tell me that a bag of rice, you know, goes for about over 30,000 naira, maybe 35,000 naira, a bag of rice. And you give somebody 30,000. Now, he needs to transport himself to the office. He needs to pay his house rent, you know. Then he needs to recharge his phones. He needs to buy data. So that is totally unrealistic.
He needs to buy a generator because most times there's no power.
Because there's no electricity. You need to buy a generator. So that is why, the idea of a living wage becomes very interesting to me. You know, because we need a living wage. Now, in the US, you know, the minimum wage per hour is $15. Now, if somebody works in the US, he earns $15 per hour. He works 6-7 hours a day. You know, he has got over $90. Convert $90 times 730, which is like the black market rate. You are getting about almost 60,000, which is double of what we call minimum wage, which is unrealistic.
And that is for a day, right?
Yes, for a day. That is for one day. Now, unfortunately, in Nigeria, there are people who don't earn 30,000 naira in a day, in a month. There are people who do all sorts of jobs.
Even in government circles.
They don't earn the 30,000. And then some states don't pay. If I'm just coming from my village, and I met somebody who is on level 14, you know, and who told me that, look, at the end of the month, what enters into his account is about 14,000.
That's an assistant director, right?
Yes, something like an assistant director. So at the state level, people are cheated more than they are, you know, even at the federal level. So when you talk about minimum, we have to get to the point of dealing with what we call poverty in a realistic manner. Because as long as you don't pay minimum, a living wage, people will sink down into poverty.
Now, this idea of pay rise and increase in salaries, is that really the way to go in terms of what you are talking about, poverty alleviation?
It is one of the ways to go. Because, for you to survive, you need to earn money.
But we've seen over the years that the more the salary rise, the more the expenses increase as well.
And inflation rate goes up.
Well, there are other things that should go pari passu with, whatever you are calling, increase in salaries. Because I have not seen increased salaries over the years. Let me tell you, I met somebody who said he earned 120 when he was working in 1982, 83. He earned 120 in 1982, 83. And we said, okay, let us calculate it. What will it translate to in today's Nigeria? Now we said, okay, in 82, 83, I think maybe $1, $2 was 1 naira, something like that. Because like naira was stronger. Now, if you said, okay, you earn 120 naira, we now say, okay, $2 was 1 naira. Then it means that you now say, okay, the $2 of that era will convert to about $240. You understand? Multiply by 700 and something. You now discover that somebody who was earning 120 as minimum wage, which was the minimum wage in 1982 or 83, is equivalent to over 170,000 naira in today's Nigeria. What I'm driving at is that this increment did not mean anything, because if 120 naira of 1982-83 is about 170 naira today, it means that all the increments that we've been doing is not realistic.
All right, Dr. Abba, do you think that, for instance, right now, Nigerians pay out of pocket for virtually everything. When they go to the hospital, the schools, public schools, because they are not in good condition, a lot of people send their children to private schools and they have to pay and all of that. Do you think that if all of those are fixed, for instance, you don't have to, maybe public schools are fixed and then children can actually go there, the healthcare system is working, do you think that that could help more than even maybe the increment in salary?
In fact, if we have the social infrastructure in place, you know, for instance, in some, I think those who have been to UK, I've never lived in UK, they will tell you that you buy the ticket for rail transport for a month. I don't know how much, maybe it is £20. I don't know how much it is. Then you use it, and no matter the number of times you enter the train, you don't pay. That is like a security for you. You see, you have this and you can move. Now, if you talk about education, you know, the education is almost free. Primary, secondary education. The rate is so low and it's almost free. You understand? Now, in your houses, you have water. Even though you pay water rate, it's not too exorbitant. You have electricity to do a whole lot of things. But in Nigeria, you see, people are now, people have to make provision for almost everything. And that is why even whatever you call the minimum wage does not make sense. Because those things that government should provide, because you know, those in power accumulate all the money on our behalf. They collect all the money on our behalf. Those things that they should do, they are not doing them. If we have effective transportation system, effective electricity, telecommunication, water, and all this and all that, even education, if it is brought to the point that even if you are a poor man, your child goes to school free of charge, but he receives a good education. If whatever you get as whatever minimum wage will help. Okay. But then I'm saying that whatever we are earning as minimum wage today should not be minimum wage, because it is not realistic. We need to look at what is realistic. Why are Nigerians going to other parts of the world? Nigerians are going to even Sudan, even Libya. You know, if you look at the minimum wage in Libya is about $300 per month. That of Nigeria is about $65 per month. Libya is a war-torn country. Why should the minimum wage in Libya be higher? You see Nigerians return from Libya and say we want to go back. Why? Because what they earn there as minimum wage in Libya is higher than what we earn here. Okay. In fact, in Africa, I think we are one of the least.
We're not among the top 10.
We are not among the top 10. Okay. You know, we are down. Below. So we shouldn't be so. This is Nigeria, the giant of Africa. So we must pay a living wage.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some other stories related to this, of course. Two things. The governor of Anambra State is threatening salary cut, or if you like, surcharge, for those who skip work on Mondays because of the sit-at-home orders. So that's one. The second one, the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki, is also, you know, shaking the tables once again, saying that there is every likelihood that government may not be able to pay salaries from June going forward, except they remove the subsidy or print more money. So that's also generating another controversy. The NLC has said that he is not the spokesperson for government. So why is he speaking for government? What do you make of these two stories?
Well, when you talk about Anambra, that's Professor Soludo.
Yes.
What is paramount, you know, is to ensure that people have security. Now, if he says you must go to work and you know you are not secure, unless he's telling us that the activities of IPOB and those who have threatened attack on the people of Anambra if they went to work on Mondays, unless he is saying that there is nothing like that, unless he's saying that there is enough security, to ward off what IPOB and other groups like IPOB are doing, IPOB and ESN, unless he is telling us that there is enough security, it is not justifiable for you to sanction people, because the first thing you do as a human being is to protect your life. You can't go out, you can't go to a place where you know that your life is endangered. So, I don't know why he is saying that, but the first thing is to make sure that there is security. Then as for Obaseki, now this is the second time Obaseki is making a statement that looks, it may be controversial, but economically realistic. Number one, we are told that there's no budget for subsidy as from July. You know, the finance minister said that the subsidy budget that was made, about 3 trillion, was up to June this year. So if you say, look, there's going to be subsidy as from June, it means that there must be supplementary budget taken to the National Assembly for approval. Then if you look at the debt servicing, you know, I think it was about, the last time I checked was about 72% of the revenue. So if you earn 100, if we earn 100 naira in Nigeria, we are spending about 75 naira, you know, if not more, to service our debts. I think somebody was even talking about 90-something%.
Yes.
Now, if you spend all about 90-something% of what you earn to service debt, so where will you have the money to do other things?
Well, Dr. Abba, first of all, the NLC has said that Obaseki, the governor of Edo State, is not the spokesperson of government, so you shouldn't say that. But another thing is this: we've always noticed that anytime they're talking about salary, governments at the state level, there's always this pushback, you know, because especially when there's reduction in allocation from the federal, from the center and all of that. And the question a lot of people are asking is, the governments at the state level, have they done enough in the area of internal generation of revenue generation to support whatever it is that they get, so that they don't keep saying that, oh, okay, if we don't get this from the center, okay, there'll be no salary, or salary will be cut?
Well, some persons are saying we are not generating enough revenue. But from what we have discovered during various investigations, we discovered that a lot of revenue is generated at the state level. But do you know what happens to this money? Is stolen. So you see, so they cannot just say that it's because there's no money from the center. There's no accountability at the local level, at the state level. There is no accountability at the state level. For instance, if you go to motor parks, they collect money from people, from taxis, from buses. They collect money from Okada riders. When you enter into a market, like even a village market, you see revenue people there, they are collecting 15 naira, 100 naira from people. And then at the end of the month, what the state government will talk about is what they get from Abuja. And even what they get from Abuja, they don't make use of this thing in the interest of the people. They steal this thing they got from Abuja. A local government gets, let's say, 80 million every month from FAC. The salary of the local government is about 20 million. 60 million cannot be accounted for. Even this 20 million is not paid. You understand? So there is need for transparency and accountability at the local level. But in Nigeria, everybody is focusing on the federal government. But the money that is generated, you know, at the local level is misappropriated, is stolen. Sorry, there was a time I went to the local government chairman's house. Sorry. And, you know, we had a very nasty experience. Because some persons came with bags of money. Bags. You know, sacks. And he now said, oh, these guys are fraudulent people. These guys are fraudulent. It's okay. This is from the market. He just collected this from the market. And he was counting, I mean, it's okay. The money will not be coming because they folded them in 1,000 naira, you know. I think it's 200 naira, 5 of them is 1,000 naira. So they folded them and put them in the sack and took it to the local government chairman's house. So when we're leaving, before we left, say, these guys are fraudulent. Let me tell you, there are tips everywhere. You see, he brought some of them and counted. They were not complete. Almost some of them were 600 naira instead of 1,000. Some were 1,000 instead of this. I said, these people are tips, you know. So when we left, and somebody now said, look, even that money is not supposed to go to the local government chairman's house. There's a treasury department. Why is it not in the treasury department? You see, so you see, at the local level, at the state level, a lot of fraud is taking place. Well, we are not talking about those things. And I don't know. You see, because I don't know if they should. I think EFCC should have its equivalent at the local level. Okay. Because the kind of fraud that is taking place, that makes it difficult for them to accomplish a lot of things.
Okay. Well, let's move away from the Workers' Day stories now and talk about a bit of about Nigerians in Sudan who are seeking to be, returned and evacuated from that country. We now understand that Egypt has opened its borders to Nigerians fleeing Sudan now after days at the border trying to get clearance for their papers, their visa, and the rest of them. And also, sadly, we are also hearing that one of the buses conveying Nigerians to Port Sudan, where they will from there move to Saudi Arabia, was caught by fire as a result of heat, coming from the tires. And I mean, I can only imagine for a desert area how how it will be really. And if even a vehicle will catch fire, then what more of human beings who have gone days without water, without food? How traumatic really is.
And what is happening in Sudan is very, very unfortunate, because we thought that after the coup, after al-Bashir was removed, that the people who took over, will give the people a sense of belonging. Because, al-Bashir was accused of a whole lot of things, and we thought that these military people will now say, okay, let's stabilize the country, let's normalize Sudan and all this and all that. Unfortunately, that this is happening. And from someone whose child has experienced something like this before, I know the trauma that parents are passing through. Many parents are no longer sleeping because, you see, your daughter, your son is caught in this crisis in Sudan. It's not funny. And I think the government should, I read the story that said that Buhari was talking to ASIS, and that is what they should do. They should talk to all African.
But Dr. Abba, these children, they've been there. They've been at the border for over 4 days, almost 5 days now. Do you think that Nigeria, it handled the diplomatic angle of this issue appropriately? Because, I mean, why was it that it was when these students got to the border that they started talking about documents and all of that? Do you think that there was proper engagement between our diplomatic side and that of the Egyptian government before,
And did it even have to take this long for the president to put a call through
to President
of Egypt before the whole thing is now? Because the impression we are now given is that, the president has reached out to the president of Egypt, and so as a result of that intervention, the borders are now open for Nigerians.
So it's very unfortunate that is happening, because we have diplomatic missions in all the neighboring countries. We have diplomatic missions in Egypt, we have in Saudi, we have in Chad, all the neighboring countries. We have, I think, even in Ethiopia. We have, and these officials are supposed to liaise with their government to say, look, we have to evacuate Nigerians from these countries. We must we must act quickly. So the delay, I can't understand.
As at yesterday, a parent spoke to the child, and the child said that, yes, they've been at the border for about 4 days, but as at yesterday, they started setting up camps, canopies, which made the students scared, because, okay, if all this while there were no canopies, and now you're setting up canopies, it means that we don't know where we're going to lose this place. So it was a cheering news when later in the evening they said they had opened. But all the trauma, couldn't it have been avoided?
Right from when war started in Sudan, right from when there was crisis, Nigeria ought to have made preparations to evacuate its citizens. Many countries did it. The British, they've been delayed for about 2 days. And there was so much criticism in Britain. They had to, act quickly.
Even
Uganda, you see, I don't know why anything that comes to Nigeria, acting is like a difficult thing for people to do. I don't know whether it is a bureaucracy. Because between the Diaspora Commission, the Foreign Affairs, there is this argument who is responsible.
The Ministry of Humanitarian Management.
Humanitarian Affairs. I don't know who exactly should act. But when things like this happen, there ought to have been a meeting, Ministry A, Commission B. Let us meet and deal with this situation. And you can do this over Zoom, make phone calls, and because you see, Nigerians, are like orphans. Anytime anything happens in any part of the world, nobody cares for them, and at the end of it, you start hearing stories. Some Nigerians died in when they were running away from the crisis in Ukraine. They died because they were just trying to help themselves. Along the line, something happened and they died. Right. So we don't want to record that kind of situation. We're talking about bus accident, bus catching fire and things like that. You can imagine young people being stranded and nobody cares for them. It's very unfortunate.
All right, well, let's take a look at another bad story for Indomie lovers, really. Those lovers of noodles. The NAFDAC has banned the importation of noodles as a result of investigation indicating that there are some substances in Indomie that could lead to cancer. That's those investigations by Malaysia, and one other country. We are talking about Malaysia and Taiwan, and so this is causing a scare. Really, should we dispose of Indomie now? Now that these revelations are coming out, the NAFDAC said that they will be taking random samples of Indomie and do some investigations to see if there are these substances there. It's quite a scary story.
Well, is the fact is that NAFDAC should do much more, carry out its own independent investigation before banning, because I'm thinking that these are things that ought to have been really looked into, because they know that Nigerians consume Indomie a whole lot. Many Nigerians are consuming. So if you say you are banning these things now, you have to educate Nigerians. Are you banning those ones that are imported? Do we produce Indomie in Nigeria? I think there are factories that produce Indomie in Nigeria.
So from the story, yes, the ban on the importation of noodles have long been there. They are just restating that, and I think we have some production.
No, if Indomie is produced in Nigeria, then we can ban the ones that are being imported. I don't even know why we should import if we are producing in Nigeria. But then we have to now test the ones that are produced in Nigeria to find out if they are worth consuming. And NAFDAC must come clear. Let us know the ramifications of the investigation.
But something that has come to the fore here is the fact that even though Indomie has been banned, I mean, NAFDAC said it has been on the list of restricted items for a while, it was still entering the country. Because if not, they wouldn't have had to restate a ban at this point.
That means that NAFDAC has not been doing what it ought to do. Because I think at a point, I don't think NAFDAC is still at the border, because they ought to be at the seaport or to be at the entry point to check these things that are coming in.
At the border, why should you have NAFDAC at the border?
Well, they were working hand in hand. You have customs, then you were supposed to have NAFDAC, they were supposed to have SON, this time organization of Nigeria, who will now say, okay, these are electrical materials coming in. This is not. I would
also like to know what, for instance, if Malaysia had not done this and found out that there was this in the noodles, is there nothing that our NAFDAC or SON does when items come into Nigeria? Because this ban now is dependent on the report from Malaysia.
From Malaysia.
So, I mean, what would have happened if they didn't share that information with us?
Well, NAFDAC is responsible, because what we know is that, you see, before NAFDAC approves any product for consumption, it must carry out thorough investigation. I don't know if their labs are effective, because if their labs are not effective, it means that we can just receive anything and consume. They give NAFDAC. I don't know if Indomie has NAFDAC numbers, but they give NAFDAC numbers. But the number does not, does it certify? I don't think the number certify that, look, this is good for consumption. But you say, okay, we approve that this should be produced.
I think that's the essence of the numbers. If NAFDAC should give you a registration number, it means that they have done all the checks, and certify that you are good to go.
No, so I expect that NAFDAC will tell us more. The ones that are produced in Nigeria, are they healthy? If they are banned Indomie from Indonesia, from wherever, the ones that are produced in factories in Nigeria, are they healthy for us to? Is it healthy for us to consume them? Because the fact is that, I don't know, Indomie noodles came and took over everywhere. Children do Indomie. Those who don't have time to cook, they just do Indomie. Everywhere. Students do Indomie.
Even adults.
Even working adults.
So we now have to check
almost everybody.
When you say it has cancerous content, it's very, very, something that is very serious. Because I think next to rice is Indomie.
All right.
So NAFDAC must come clearly. Let us know what the kind of investigation they are doing, and let them educate us. Okay. Which ones? If they are sure that we no longer be eating Indomie, then they must take steps either to great supermarkets, collect those ones, check them and things like that.
All right, let's get your own thoughts finally before we leave in just a minute or two. Your comment on the controversy now in Kano about the Emirate Council. The Rabi Musa Kwankwaso, candidate of the NNPP, was heard in a viral video now saying that the issue of the dethronement of the 14th Emir of Kano, Sanusi Lamido, will be revisited by the incoming administration of Abba Gida Gida. So let's hear your thoughts on that. And by the way, there's a response to that anyways. The governor of Kano says, well,
that God would not allow it to happen.
Yes.
Well, we expect stability in traditional institutions, because we do expect traditional institutions to be exposed to too much of politics. You know, when the emir was removed, you know, we saw that it was like there was too much of politics, you know, in his removal. And so, if Kwankwaso is saying it to be reviewed, let's know the reasons why it to be reviewed. Let's know, let there be a clear, reason, you know, for that review. If the injustice was perpetrated, then they have to be redressed. Because I know the former emir died before Sanusi was brought in. But the circumstances under which Sanusi was removed, you know, was too political. And I think it will be, I don't know what the rules are, but it will not be wrong to take another look at it, because a lot of things have changed. You know, apart from, I think the emirate in Kano has been broken down into some. There are others.
There are about five of them now.
Yes. So you had one huge emir before. Now, I mean, we have other emirates that have been created. But it is not good for the traditional institution to be exposed to too much of politics, because if the rule is this, if an emir passes on, another person takes over.
I mean, but I mean, is it exposing the traditional institution, or we have seen that there's a seeming involvement in politics even by some of the traditional rulers already? So,
no, but traditional rulers, you can't say everyone can be political. They have their own interests. Let me tell you.
Yes, but they are supposed to be apolitical.
Is it possible? I don't think it's. Traditional rulers may claim to be apolitical, but they always have a political leaning. They always have their preferences. Because even all politicians go to them, I want you to anoint me.
Exactly. So if that happens, then can we really control or say, well, they are not supposed to be bothered by too much politicking? Because already it seems like the traditional institution seem to have, you know,
it's not as powerful as it used to be.
Yes.
And in any case, the fact that before a traditional ruler is appointed, 3 names are sent to the governor, and then the governor picks one, automatically politics has entered into the whole thing.
But that of removal, that's what I'm talking about. You know, somebody's already a ruler, you just depose him. You know, if he has done something that is fundamental against the tradition, is different.
All right.
So I'm thinking that if the next government say, okay, look, what happened to Sanusi, you know, was not right, we want to correct it, I think they can still do it.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Theophilus Abba is the Director of Programs, Daily Trust Foundation, joining us for perspectives on our newspaper review for today.